So when we were trying to prove the area formula for a circle, we started with a circle that has its area filled in using squares. So these squares are 1 by 1 centimeters to represent area. And then we have this square here. And if you notice that this side length of the square actually is the same thing as the radius of the circle. And if you notice that this side length here of the square is also the radius of the circle. And to find the area inside this particular square, we would count up how many squares the radius is here, how many squares the radius is here, and we would multiply them. So in this case, it's a 10 by 10 square, so our area is going to be 100 squares, okay, or centimeters squared, since these are 1 by 1. So then we have 100 squares on the inside of this square, which represents its area, or how much space it takes up. So then when we said is, okay, well, how many squares are there inside of a circle? So if I counted all of the squares, and now it's going to be an estimate, it was kind of rough, but every square is 1. And then as I counted, these ones were about half, and so I would combine them to make 1. And I counted up all of the squares on the inside of the circle. And what I counted was 314 squares roughly. All right, you could have counted a little bit more, you could have counted a little bit less, but roughly there's about 314 squares inside the circle, which means that the circle's area was 314. And now we want to figure out, okay, well, how many squares, these big ones, fit inside of the circle? And so what I would have done is I would have said, okay, well, there's 314 squares in the circle, and I'm going to divide that by the number of squares there are in one of these big shaded in squares. And that'll tell me how many times I could fit that one square inside the circle. And what I would have gotten is around 3.14. And in math, 3.14 is actually, it has a name, it's called pi, right? Obviously, pi is an infinite number. It continues, but we're going off estimations here. So about 3.14 is going to be pi. So that means that this gray square fits into the circle pi times. So its area manages to fit inside the circle pi times, which means that whatever the area is of the square, if I multiply it by pi, that's going to give me the area of the circle. Now to find the area of the square, we went 10 by 10, but actually what we did is we multiplied the radius times the radius, and that gave us the area of the square, and then we're going to multiply that by pi. And so what we end up doing is we end up getting a formula for the area of a circle. And that's going to be pi times radius, which actually translates to pi r squared, because r squared is a number times itself, so radius times radius. And that's how we get the formula for the area of a circle, pi r squared, using our diagram above.